Imagine this. You are strolling along a white sandy beach with ocean waves gently breaking on the sunny shore. Then you notice something gold sparkling in the sand 50 yards ahead of you, and you wonder what it could be. Probably just some trash an irresponsible person left on the beach, you think. But then, as you get closer, you can tell it is some kind of small disc. You pick it up and hold it between your thumb and forefinger, turning it over slowly. You are amazed to find it is some kind of gold coin. Is this a familiar daydream of yours? If it is, you are not alone. Thousands of people each year search for lost treasure on beaches, in forests, caves, and even in more obscure places. Many of these people are just weekenders. Searching for treasure is just an interesting hobby to them. But for others, treasure hunting becomes an obsession, almost an addiction. It is the same hunger that drove thousands to dig for gold in the American West, and even today prompts more sophisticated hunters to spend their life savings on ships and other equipment to look for sunken treasure all over the world. It is that type of obsession that began with the publication of a simple booklet titled The Beale Papers in 1885. Since that time, hundreds of people have tried to unlock the secret of the Beale treasure, while others insist that the mystery is nothing but a hoax. I will leave that up to you to decide. Here is the story of the Beale Papers. The tale begins with Robert Morris, who was born in Maryland in 1778 and moved at an early age with his family to Loudoun County, Virginia. He became a merchant buying and selling tobacco and was successful enough that he saved enough money to become financially independent. His home became a favorite destination of the town's wealthy and elite citizens, since Robert and his wife Sarah were known for gracious and luxurious entertainment. Unfortunately, Robert's good fortune was not to last. He purchased a large amount of tobacco at an elevated price, but then the market price fell dramatically, leaving him and his wife almost penniless. With few options and his savings dwindling, Morris leased the local Washington Hotel and began a new career in the hotel business. He soon demonstrated that his previous success was no accident. His excellent management gained him fame as a host, and the reputation of the Washington Hotel spread even beyond the borders of the state of Virginia. After a few years, he moved to the Franklin Hotel, which was the largest and best located hotel in the area. According to the story, Robert made many prominent friends, including Supreme Court Chief Justice John Marshall. And according to the Beale Papers, it was at the Washington Hotel in early 1820 that Robert Morris first met Thomas Beale. In January of 1820, Beale and two friends were traveling and ended up at the Franklin Hotel. According to innkeeper Morris, the three men were educated and well-born, with refined and courteous manners. Thomas Beale soon became a popular guest due to his friendly and social demeanor. Beale was also described as a tall, dark, and handsome man with a rugged complexion from the time he spent adventuring in the outdoors. Beale stayed at the Washington Hotel until March 1820, when he left to continue his adventures in the western states. Robert Morris didn't see or hear from Beale until January 1822, 2 years later, when he showed up again at the Washington Hotel. He told Morris that, as before, he planned to stay for the winter months. In the spring, Beale prepared to leave again, but before he left, he handed Morris a box which he said contained important papers that he wished to leave at the hotel for safekeeping. Robert Morris agreed to keep the box, which he stored away in a secure location. Morris didn't think much about the box until several months later when a letter arrived from St. Louis. The letter was from Thomas Beale. Beale's letter explained that 5 years earlier, in 1817, He had left St. Louis with a group of men on a journey into the western wilderness to hunt buffalo and grizzlies. After spending months in the wilderness and with winter approaching, the group decided to head to Santa Fe, Mexico to spend the cold weather months there. Once there, the men grew restless, and small groups would head out from Santa Fe to search for wild game and whatever else they could find. In March, a small group headed north from Santa Fe and spotted a herd of buffalo, which they continued to follow for 2 weeks. One day, the party camped in a small ravine about 250 miles north of Santa Fe. While preparing their evening meal, one of the men discovered what looked like gold inside a split in the rocks. Of course, the men were very excited and sent word for the rest of the men to join them from Santa Fe. This was the beginning of a 2-year project to extract all the gold they could find. They bought basic tools and materials in Santa Fe and got to work. After gathering a large sum of gold, the men determined that they needed to hide what they found thus far. After much discussion and argument, it was finally decided that it should be sent to Virginia with Beale and some of the men, where they would bury it in a cave near a place named Buford's Tavern in the county of Bedford. They all had visited that area and agreed it was a good place to hide the gold while they continued their dig. Beale and a group of men headed back to Bedford County with the treasure. Thomas Beale then shifted the focus of his letter to Robert Morris back to the box he had left at the hotel. He explained to Morris that there were 3 letters in the box. The first letter described where Beale and his companions had buried the treasure. The second letter detailed how much gold and other valuables were hidden by the men. And the third letter was a list of the relatives that should be given a portion of the treasure should Beale and his partners never return. Beale further explained that the 3 letters were written in code, represented by lists of numbers. He also wrote that in the future he would send another letter which would contain the key to the code, so that Morris would be able to decode the letters. Beale concluded the letter with instructing Morris that the box should be held for 10 years, after which Morris could assume that Beale and his partners would never return. At that point, Morris could retrieve the treasure and distribute to the family members listed in the letter. Morris himself would also receive a portion of the treasure for his services in this matter. According to Robert Morris, this was the last communication he ever had with Beale. He assumed that Beale and his companions probably died in the wilderness since no one ever showed up to demand the box and its contents. Morris also said that he never received the key to the code that Beale had promised. He finally broke the box open in 1845, but the contents were just unintelligible lists of numbers. So this was quite the mystery. Was a treasure really buried near Buford's Tavern in Bedford County? It seemed the first priority was to decode the letters. Robert Morris was unable to decode any of the letters himself, but an anonymous friend of his was somehow able to figure out the second letter describing the treasure. He realized that the code numbers on the second letter corresponded to the first letter of words in the text of the Declaration of Independence. After decoding the numbers, the letter revealed that 1,014 pounds of gold, 3,812 pounds of silver were deposited in November of 1819. In December of 1821, an additional deposit was made that consisted of 1,907 pounds of gold, 1,286 pounds of silver, and also jewels obtained in St. Louis in exchange for silver. They were valued at $13,000. So, if that treasure can be found, it would be valued today at about $50 million. And if the second letter was decoded, it would seem to be easy to figure out the first letter, which describes the location of the hidden treasure. But no such luck. The method used for the second letter doesn't work for the first or third letter. So the hunt began for the key to unlocking the 2 remaining letters. Hundreds of treasure hunters have tried and failed to unravel the coded letter that provides specific directions to the hidden treasure. For over 100 years, people have been arrested for trespassing and unauthorized digging in the vicinity of the old Beaufort Tavern and within the 4-mile perimeter mentioned in Letter 2. Several digs were completed at the top of Porter's Mountain, one in the late 1980s with the owner's permission, as long as any treasure they found was split 50-50 with him. However, the treasure hunters only found Civil War artifacts, which at least paid for their expenses. In one notable incident, a woman was arrested for digging up a grave that she believed held the contents of the treasure. She was lucky that the judge only charged her for trespassing and not for desecrating a grave. There have been many experts who say the Beale Papers was an elaborate hoax, most likely perpetrated by its publisher, J.B. Ward. The motive? Money, of course. He was charging 50 cents for each booklet in 1885, which was a pretty hefty sum at the time. Professional code breakers say that the codes in the 2 remaining letters appear to be fabricated, numbers randomly selected by a hoaxer. There has also been no historical evidence found of the existence of a man named Thomas Beale, although census records are spotty for the state of Virginia during this time period. Further fact-checking found that a man, Thomas Beale, appears in the customer list of the St. Louis Post Department in 1820, although his name is spelled slightly differently. According to the Beale Papers, Beale sent a letter from St. Louis in 1822, so this might validate that Beale did indeed exist. There is also a Cheyenne Indian tribal legend about gold and silver being taken from the west and buried in mountains in the east. This legend originated in the same time period that Beale supposedly found gold in New Mexico. So, what do you think? Is there really hidden treasure in a secret underground vault in Virginia? Or was this just a hoax to make a few bucks? I have a confession to make. Although I'm not a treasure hunter, I do love a good puzzle. After learning about the Beale Papers, I got a copy of the number codes for the first letter and have been trying to unlock any secret they may hold. Not surprisingly, I haven't figured it out. At least not yet. Maybe you will have better luck?